Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and Blizzard decided to add a cloak catch-up for your cloaks past rank 15. Right now, if you are trying to keep up with the cloak in the current patch of World of Warcraft, your legendary cloak, you get to upgrade a next rank every single week. But very soon we'll be reaching the end of our cloaks, or so a lot of people thought. Instead, Blizzard will be adding a way for you to continue improving on your cloak. Blizzard always adds some sort of a catch-up system, and a lot of us expected for them to use the Heart of Azeroth, the necklace that nobody really enjoys farming, but instead, for this patch and the final portion of Battle for Azeroth, which is the end of this expansion, they decided to offset a lot of this catch-up to the cloak, which everybody has. Not everybody wants to farm the necklace, but the cloak offers a lot more benefits. It starts out at a high item level, and just about every one of your alts already has one at a fairly decent ranking, so it's better to use that going forward. In the blue post, Blizzard decided to release exactly how you upgrade the cloak, and they said that after a couple of weeks we are going to be reaching the rank 15, and what we'll be doing is farming malefic cores to further upgrade our cloak to really increase its corruption resistance. Now, it doesn't actually make the cloak that much stronger, but the cloak effect becomes a lot more powerful with the gear that we can wear. Of course, corruption resistance means wearing more corruption. But first of all, how would you go about upgrading that cloak? Blizzard mentioned you either need to complete 4 objective areas and the final boss in a horrific vision, or defeat N'Zoth the Corruptor, which is the final boss of the new raid, on normal difficulty or higher. This is actually Blizzard going back on one of the requirements they said before. They wanted for everybody to do a full run of horrific vision with all the objectives completed plus a mask. Some of you guys maybe have seen a couple of videos of people running a 5-mask run inside of Horrific Visions for better gear, rewards, or just the achievement of it. But Blizzard decided to take away the requirement of having to use a mask. A mask inside a Horrific Vision is very similar to an affix inside of a Mythic Plus dungeon. It's a challenge to make the dungeon or affix in some ways more difficult through various means, and masks can decrease how much sanity you have or increase how much sanity damage you take, so they removed that for ease of access. So the cloak itself is a lot more alt friendly. Killing N'Zoth on normal and heroic should allow majority of players, or a plurality at least, to get their upgrades once a week easily. However, if you're someone who does solo and likes to play by yourself without other people, Horrific Visions is still a great avenue for someone to upgrade your cloak through other various means. And very happy and glad that Blizzard decided to go with this type of system. The cloak catch-up is actually also interesting. It adds more corruption resistance, meaning for catch-up, you get to wear more corrupted gear, a lot more stars, gushing wounds, and tentacles firing off in every direction. Extra damage from every player, whether DPS or healer, will mean that the bosses will go down faster, and certain mechanics might even be easier as Blizzard continues to nerf bosses individually. My main question though is, how much corruption could the cloak provide at its maximum height? What is the highest number that Blizzard is planning of corruption resistance that we all might have? For example, my rogue right now, and this together with Breath of the Dying Essence, which does provide a passive for 10% extra corruption resistance as a unique bonus, my cloak right now reduces 42 corruption. But how much corruption could my cloak reduce at its highest? What number does Blizzard want us to get to? Is it going to be some crazy number where we have 1 billion corruption, like let's say 3 sets of tier 3 infinite stars on 475 pieces of gear? Like, how big do they want us to go, or is it going to be more tame than we think? The second thing is, we now know that Blizzard said once a week we'll increase our cloak's corruption resistance after rank 15 by 3 per week. Now, if you were to find a number that is likely to be the maximum corruption resistance and divide it by 3, could we figure out how many weeks it is possible that we'll have to wait until the likely opportunity that Shadowlands gets released? And how much corruption would be maybe too much, or just how big Blizzard is expecting for this to get? So right now our cloaks are at rank 13 and they do 42 corruption resistance. There is a possibility that this corruption resistance does increase by the time we hit rank 15. I wish I had some numbers off of what the cloaks were like when we could test them back in PTR, but I'm pretty sure even the numbers in PTR were all over the place. So the corruption resistance we have to work with for now, but it's going to be more subjective number, is 42. Let's take a hypothetical date. What if Shadowlands, and I'm not saying it will, were to be released around the same time that other World of Warcraft expansions generally release. So something along the lines of late August. Taking a look at the calendar, the next possible Tuesday that is the latest on August, Tuesday being the perfect day for WoW to have majority of the massive updates roll out, which they usually do, you know, patch updates and whatnot. The date would be 25th of August. If we were to say, hypothetically, Shadowlands releases then, you know, the actual expansion comes out, or maybe the pre-patch comes out by then, that would mean that that's about 96 corruption over those weeks. 96 added to 42 would be about a realistic number 138. 138 plus 10 that you would get from one of the newer essences we have to work with is 148. 148, how many big corruptions could you fit into that? You actually could fit almost full 2 tier 3 massive corruptions, so 2 sets of tier 3 stars. Tier 3 stars, it does a lot of damage, and we're assuming maybe if you put it on the highest item level piece that you have on your character, we can even average it to 460. That item level doesn't even matter. What we look at is just how much corruption it brings on. So you're looking at almost 0 corruption or very minimal effects at this amount of time if you were to guess that the end to the cloaks would be around 148 or maybe potentially the very last end to some of those cloaks. That would give players a lot of room to have a massive corruption, but also still tag on another powerful corruption and still play with some of the negative effects for quite a bit of time. Let's take a look at a different date. Now, some people were kind of spreading this information to one another that obviously Shadowlands is releasing on December 31st, 2020, because when you look at the pre-order, they have this excerpt at the bottom says, it will be available on or before 31st, which I'm pretty sure is just a legal thing just to make sure because it's a pre-order product. But it doesn't mean the actual date. Could it? Maybe. But what if we were to take this date, the latest possible time when Shadowlands could be released? What kind of corruption resistance could we have? Would it be an unreasonable number? And maybe the happy medium is somewhere between these two numbers. So take the amount of weeks from about the time you get your level 15 rank cloak to this 31st of December times 3 by the amount of corruption we get per week, and that's looking at 147 corruption plus the corruption that's on our current cloaks, which let's say it is 42. That's 189 corruption plus 10 from reaping flames and other corruption or essences that deal with corruptions, 199 corruption. That's quite a lot of corruption to play with. If you were to take a look at how many tier 3 stars you could put in there, that's 2 and a little half over. I know everybody has a different thought process on whether you like corruptions, whether you don't, but at some point we basically literally become a walking tier 3 stars. We're no longer a rogue or a warrior, and I feel like if the expansion were to be released around December, that would be way too high of a number to play with. So if we were to guess, and I guess at most we can really hypothesize, what would be a more realistic number, the realistic cap that Blizzard would want us to reach before they're like, okay, time for the new expansion. You know, what is the highest number they would want for people to naturally get to as they're catching up to content, trying to kill the bosses, trying to do whatever things we want to do. I don't know what that number is, to be honest. We can only guess as of right now, and as we get closer to the actual release, Blizzard will start hinting things. We'll see more stuff about the alpha, the beta for Shadowlands, we'll have more promotional material, we might even have some sort of a leak like, hey, here's a possible date, and it'll probably be Blizzard themselves leaking just to see what the community reaction would be if they feel like the expansion should come out earlier or maybe cook in the oven for a little bit longer. Blizzard does these kind of things sometimes, so I'm not surprised if that's how they end up going about. But if I had to guess, I think they'll try to stick to the similar schedule of late August. If anything, Shadowlands might be on one of the expansions that might want to cook in the oven for a little bit longer. So it's most likely we'll get some sort of maybe a pre-patch or maybe some sort of smaller tier content, you know, Essences account bound finally. And it'll be about mid-September or very, very early October. I really don't think we'll be waiting all the way until December, because imagine running into arenas and just being literally the embodiment of infinite stars incarnate with all those corruptions. You basically are a walking corruption. No longer are you a rogue, a death knight, a mage, or whatever your class may be. So I really do think it is going to be earlier than December. How early? It's anyone's guess, but I don't think it's going to be all the way till December 31st. That'll be maybe a little too silly if that were true, but hey, it could be. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I do hope you enjoyed this update. Let me know your thoughts when you think Shadowlands will be released, and I'll see all of you guys in another video.